So invasive plants are a big issue for natural resource management, whether that's on public lands or private lands. And it's something we do a lot of work on just because of that. Uh, Invasive plants have been shown to reduce species diversity, so they push out our native species. They may reduce the productivity of your land, so maybe as your trees grow or something like that, as well as impact wildlife habitat, ecosystem functions. There's a lot of alterations or negative impacts as a consequence of having invasive species. Um, One of the main reasons they become a problem, we think, is they're basically free from all their native pests or pathogens or things that kind of keep them in check in their native habitat. When they're moved to this new habitat, they don't have those checks and balances, so they're free to grow a little more um, fast, produce a little more seed than they would otherwise, and that gives them that competitive edge. And so they are able to outcompete our native species and take over. When we have a big stand of an invasive species that's just that one species, we call it a monoculture. And then we also call a problem when we have a population of invasive species an infestation. And so these infestations often move quickly. They're a problem, and so we need to manage them. You can do that a bunch of different ways, but some of the work that we do is trying to promote safe, effective management techniques. We research different techniques to try to find the best one for the different species out there. It's an issue that any landowner is going to have to deal with, whether you have 1 acre or 500 acres. Uh, Invasive species are going to be a problem on that land, unfortunately. Probably the worst invasive plant in southern Illinois in terms of damage is this one, Amur honeysuckle. You'll also hear it called bush honeysuckle. But this plant, to me, is the most damaging because it can impact wildlife, it can impact your understory plants and your trees. And it doesn't really need that disturbance. It can go into really high quality forested ecosystems. So we're very concerned about it. Here it is in full flower in the spring. In the fall, it'll have those bright red berries on it. But again, one of the most impactful ones out there, one of the ones that I strongly encourage landowners to control and keep in check if they can. It's pretty easy to identify. It'll have these opposite leaves, so 2 leaves at a time that have a long point. This time of year, the bright white or sometimes turning yellow flowers on it like that. And then it's a shrub, right? It's only 10, 15 foot tall at most. It usually has a bunch of stems coming out of the ground. Uh, Definitely keep an eye out for this one. Managing it is important. You can do a couple things. Smaller bushes like this, you can actually pull them out of the ground by hand. It pulls out pretty easily. Or you can use herbicides. So you would spray the foliage with something like glyphosate, or you could cut the plant down at the base, and if you do that, it would just sprout back unless you paint the stems that you cut with an herbicide to keep it from sprouting back. Prescribed fire is another effective tool that'll keep this in check a little bit. It'll at least keep it from growing as big, and it'll kill small ones. So prescribed fire in a forest can be a very good thing to manage invasives, particularly honeysuckle here. Another invasive that we have is Oriental bittersweet. It's also called roundleaf bittersweet. And so this is a woody vine. And so most of that vine and stuff you see behind me here is all bittersweet, and it's climbing up into these trees. That's really where this one gets its damage, or where we're worried about it, is it's a tree killer, right? It'll climb up into the trees. It'll either wrap itself around the trees and girdle them, or it'll just climb up into the branches and shade the tree out, or get so heavy in the tree that it'll literally break branches or pull them down. We've had multiple ice storms the last few years, and what we found is trees that have a lot of bittersweet in it seem to be more susceptible to ice damage, to storm damage, because those branches are weakened, they're heavy with the bittersweet, and so we see a lot more damage in a forest when there's an infestation of bittersweet. We do have a native bittersweet, but I've never seen it really get to this level of an infestation where it's choking trees out. Usually it's just one vine at a time. The other way to tell our native bittersweet apart from the Oriental bittersweet, one is the Oriental bittersweet has these really rounded leaves. They're almost perfectly round, where the native has more of an elongated leaf. And then if you see here, all the flowering on this plant, Oriental bittersweet has flowers all up and down the plant like this, and it'll have fruit all up and down the plant. But the native just has the flowers and fruit right at the end. So it produces a lot less fruit, and again, just right at the end. But the other thing about this plant is everywhere it touches the ground, it'll produce new roots. So if a vine lays along the ground, it may root 5 or 6 times. It can also send up suckers out of its root system as well. And so you get these huge patches that are connected that are really, really hard to control. And so you have to work at it and keep repeating control to try to get rid of it. If you just cut it or burn it, oftentimes you get this flush of growth coming up afterwards that is just a mat of vegetation. So it's a challenge to control. It spreads easily because of the berries are moved by birds. So it really is a challenge. Fortunately, there's some bad patches in Illinois and southern Illinois, but it's not really, really widespread. So you're not going to find it everywhere. But when you do have it, it's certainly one to focus on because of its potential to damage your trees. Autumn olive is another invasive shrub. This one is a little different than honeysuckle or some of the others in that it really likes the open lands. And so this is a big problem at forest edges like this, or if you have prairies, meadows, fields, young tree plantings, any place with a lot of light, this species can be a problem. I've actually seen it completely take over a tree planting where it ended up shading out and killing 90% of the trees that were planted in there. So a big issue for natural resources, a big issue for agriculture because of its ability to get into pastures and hay fields. But autumn olive is a kind of a weird plant in that it fixes nitrogen like a lot of bean plants do. So it'll actually take nitrogen from the air and add it into the soil. Just kind of unusual to have a plant that's not a bean to do that. And so it can grow in really, really poor sites. So a lot of mine reclamation sites and things back in the day used to plant this because it could grow in those poor sites, and then it's really spread out from there. It has this kind of gray-green looking leaves. If you flip them over, it'll have really bright kind of silvery sheen to the underside of the leaves, which really makes it noticeable. In the fall, it'll have a lot of berries that are kind of rusty red colored on it. And then in the early spring, it's done flowering now, but early spring, it'll have these little whitish yellow flowers that are so sweet smelling, it almost knocks you over. But grows in big patches, loves forest edges, and can take over those open areas. A lot of the people around here, a lot of landowners will call this Russian olive. Around here, if they say Russian olive or autumn olive, they're talking about the same thing, which is this species right here.